Hello, Sean. Juan. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Hey Juan,
Hello, Martin.
what's up, guys?
Martin? Is that right?
Martin. Yes.
Martin.
Myself, okay. Hi, Max.
Now I
How
can
are
hear
you,
you.
man? How are you? Thank you for checking in. So Martin left, huh? How is everything, guys? How is the project doing, Martin? Max. Can hear you.
Unmute.
On mute.
Oh, I was muted. I said hi, Juan and Marta, and then I said, yeah, we are still going. We keep releasing and then iterating and releasing. So it's a long haul project, so it's fine. But
Yeah.
yeah, we have some partners that are keen for us to accelerate. So we'll see if we can get Catalyst backing with that as well. So we're working together with TimePath, and they're this company that have onboarded already a lot of big Dutch journalists to use their software, and they're keen to explore how data authenticity can be safeguarded with blockchain distributed technology. And yeah, they already have 1 billion views, right? So in the Netherlands, they are being used a lot,
Nice.
and yeah, that I think that's a big possibility. But other than that, also working with GameChanger still with Adriano and Marta as well. Yeah, we just haven't come across anything that is as user friendly and really empowers people all the way at the user client level. So also with Gabriel, we're working on, IPFS has this technology for private clustering,
Mhm.
and yeah, we're looking at opening that up, some possibilities that will take a similar approach that GameChanger has also taken.
Got it. Max, just for the sake of everybody to know what is the project, could you please tell us the details of what the project is in, how long it's been, and what it intends to get to do, so people know.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, Ada Moments is the project, adamoments.io, and we've been building it, for years with a couple of friends to start with, and it's basically a decentralized social media app, right? So we want to be taking over market share from Reddit. That's our real target. We want to, get those communities, the data that they generate, the content that they create, that they're in control of the value, because you already see these huge deals that are being formed between platforms like Reddit and companies like Google for data licensing agreements, right? So there's so much data and comments and context being generated in those kind of platforms that AI companies are willing to pay for that. And you actually see that quite niche groups of people already have negotiating power because they have some esoteric data silo that they're able to negotiate with. And if you're an AI company or an agent that's specializing in that particular thing, it's very interesting to start business models around that. So that's what Ada Moments is building toward, and there's many different models out there. So that's the reason why we keep deploying and iterating, is that we're trying to find those models that actually work. And now we're focused a lot more specifically on journalism. So we've met with some local journalists in the Netherlands, and yeah, we're approaching journalistic partners because we just see that there's also more demand from their side because they're really feeling the pain from AI, journalistic articles being generated or manipulated content. So yeah, they're the first that we're now getting a little bit more grip with this technology and what you can do with it because they're really the parties that are
I
feeling the
have a
pain.
question. How do
Yeah,
you prevent that
prevent what?
AI content?
Go ahead, Simon.
How do you prevent that AI content? Because you just raised it as a problem, right? So I suppose you're trying to solve that.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, what can you prevent, right? You can't prevent a lot of things. You can't prevent the scraping from the data of your website, but you can showcase or prove the authorship, right? So something that people can't steal is the proof of who actually created or posted a piece of content. And that's something that all of these news websites are starting to realize is, okay, how can we make this additional level of proof that differentiates us from other websites that are just copy pasting what we've done? And that will require collaboration on a new level, right? On a new architecture where none of them is in control, but they all use a similar trustless system. And that's, of course, where blockchain starts to get into the picture. But yeah, I mean, you can't stop a lot of things, but you can control who has access to a degree, and you can control who actually what kind of fingerprints around the metadata, for example, there are. So apart from just articles, there's also a question of manipulated media, right? So videos, pictures, the metadata can actually be changed by other companies or projects that are coming in, copying and editing and reposting it. And then there's a question of, okay, well, what's the true lineage, right? What was the entry point where this first video really hit the network? And how can you prove that? So that's also, a part of the problem that can be solved. It's not everything. And then the third aspect is in terms of rights, right? So if you can't solve it with prevention, then you can solve it with legal sense, right? So in the same way that Getty Images had automated systems to check all these websites, whether they were using Getty Images IP without consent, and they started automating all these court cases, right? You could get hit by these big Getty Images legal actions that they were trying to drain money out of small companies because they were using some kind of image that they shouldn't have been. Well, you can also, take that approach from a legal perspective where you say, well, we opted out of AI training, right? And this is still a little bit gray area because there's no formal regulations yet or global coordination and how, what are the standards for this? But you do already see some initiatives springing up, so we work together, for example, with Have I Been Trained? And they're very closely working with Hugging Face, who is, again, this like mass data provider for AI companies that are looking for training data. And what they do is they specifically opt out the data where users have actively said, hey, don't train on this, right? So this is, again, that they're lobbying with the European Union and other governments to say, when data actively says, don't train on me, right? Or when there's this metadata tag, or when a user has clearly indicated, do not train on this data, then perhaps that should be treated in a different way, or the legal weight of that should be more significant. Yeah, and then, I mean, following from that, the question is, how do you detect that, right? But there's also ways, you can poison data, you can fingerprint it again in a different way, but this is all way down the line, right? Like we're
Maybe
still very much early on.
maybe liability falls onto another party, right? Because then it shouldn't have even been trained on that data.
Yeah, right. So then who's the data provider, right? So that, I mean, the question is like, yeah, like the ball can always be moving forward, like, oh, but it's this entity rolled within this entity rolled, but at least then there's a
Yeah.
ball that's moving, right? That's at the moment, it's just like a free for all, and it's just like, well, whatever, if we find it, we train on it. And the
Right.
question
The
is,
whole
how
internet,
long is that going to be the case? Go ahead.
right? The whole internet has been the training ground so far, right? So
Yeah. 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 I mean,
it's,
that's the
it's
reality.
still crazy thinking about it.
the whole internet's being trained on. The question is, will there at some point be natural incentives to put up some types of walls, right, between that are being trained on or not? And in my opinion, I think it would be for the better of humanity if there were some control for people, groups, creators to, to have some agency in deciding what happens to their data. I think we can all agree that that is a inherent good.
Yeah. Hey, Max, if there is something that we can do, what is that one thing that we can do to help Ada Moments? To put Ada Moments in the hands of everybody?
Well, we're still working on the product, right? So we release even though it's not finished. So you'll see it's in beta. But feedback is the most useful thing, really. We cannot get enough complaints or testers or feedback, It's really the number one thing.
Okay.
And
Permission right there.
huh?
That is permission right there.
Yeah. No, I mean, we want it. And we also know where many of the pain points are. But it's good to get eyes on it, right? We're at that still that early stage where it's like, yeah, tell us those common sense things that we're missing because we were looking at this from some other rabbit hole, right? So yeah, just any feedback is super valuable. And that's also what we do together with GameChanger, and also with ARP Radio that Gabriel's building. Is you learn a lot by trying out those models that you're thinking of, right? And I think the most useful thing, apart from working together closely with GameChanger and with ARP Radio, where you have the similar goal, actually getting those first users, right? So when the moment that we're trying to explain this to journalists, the gap that we need to fill in order to get this working is substantial, right? So we're continuously looking at, okay, two things. How do we make this easier? But secondly, how do we make it worth the work to get over that bridge, right? So when they start to realize it's just too painful not to prove that I own this data, right? It's just like that's the moment that they start crossing the bridge, and it's like it's that give and take. It's like, yes, we want to simplify it, but we also don't want to be a Web2 platform. So, it's like you're finding that balance, and that's the fascinating thing, right? Is like there's no right, there's no wrong. There's only, a, a judgment call that you have to make at some point. Like, okay, this is good enough, or relinquish that control completely and then give your users another 10 controls they have to make decisions on, which is also arguable, if that's the best way forward. But yeah, tell me, what are you guys building, and what are your Catalyst proposals about?
Well, I don't have a catalyst proposal at this time, but I have a project called webbridges.io, where we help Web 2 to Web 3 and Web 4 companies to onboard. And yeah, so anybody else?
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, you go, mate.
All right, thanks. Yeah, we're building a decentralized poker application. cPoker.
Gamblers.
You can find it on the cpoker.io. And yeah, if you want to look at what we're trying to build next, so we just finished our case study for Hydra. So we're going to implement Hydra into it. And if you want to look at what we're trying to build next, you got to look at cPoker development on Catalyst. That's finally going to be our MVP. We've built 2 prototypes so far. And, we're jokingly kind of say we're trying to fill Satoshi's vision of creating a decentralized poker application, because some of you might know he built some poker UI into the first poker node, into the first Bitcoin node. So we think that he actually wanted to create more of a, and that's true, he probably actually wanted to create more of a decentralized application node, and not just, I mean, he then settled for money, right? Yeah, but this makes a lot of sense to us because that's like a decade-old cryptography and computer science problem called mental poker. If you want to look it up, it's defined by the makers of RS. What is it called? RSA, right? Ramir. Rivers, Shamir, and Edelman, the makers of RSA, the RSA crypto family. So it's a pretty big deal. If we can do that on Cardano, I think that will reflect well on Cardano. Also, back in the day, I believe that Satoshi Nakamoto just didn't have the tech stack to do that, and I believe we're probably there. Yeah. So that's my pitch, guys. Please check it out. See Poker Development.
Nice, nice. Now we have a social media to post it in. It's called, write it down.
Man, I didn't know that Satoshi enriched the node like that. That's super interesting.
Yeah, right. What about Gabriel? Gabriel, can you tell us about your project?
Thank you. Yeah, so I've had the pleasure of meeting Max last round. I had a proposal basically trying to realize more of what ARP Radio does, which is at this point, like a music aggregator on Cardano. So we are trying to index all of the music tokens and give a nice UI for, what are the hip hop tracks? What are the jazz tracks? So fortunately, I don't want to write a proposal bringing ARP Radio out. I want to what are the necessary things that our tech stack needs that this community lacks? And it's really in line with what Max is doing with Ada Moments, and it's like data provenance and authorship. So the premise of the proposal I'm fronting is VDIC Cardano, which are verifiable decentralized IPFS clusters. And the principle behind this is that the trustless nature of blockchain that we have stops at the ledger. And so much of our interaction is off-chain data. And as a user, there's a high level of trust that a user has on these platforms to deliver this off-chain information. But if we were to change the infrastructure to have dApps work in a peer-to-peer fashion, the journalists that would leverage Ada Moments would have much more control of their data. They are doing the cryptography natively on their systems. And now when they do verification, they have the initial hash that they can validate afterwards, right? So if the user isn't initially in charge of how this data is being put on chain, it kind of doesn't make sense. They're completely trusting these platforms. So VDIC is attempting to define a specification for apps to use peer-to-peer IPFS nodes. So when an app has a user sign in, they provide a client-side node, a full IPFS node for the client. And, this allows for, Max talks about data unions a lot and GDPR. And, one of the things is like the difference between the data creator and the data providers. Here, we could cryptographically prove who is the author when they uploaded it. Because when it comes to me with music, I kind of against the idea of using NFTs as like the album delivery mechanism, which is kind of how we used it. To me, it was a copyright analog. I don't know if anyone in the States was familiar with what they call the poor man's copyright. Essentially, you would get any pieces of information that would basically prove that you were the author of a specific piece. You would put this in an envelope, mail it to yourself, which would have a timestamp, processed by US Postal Service. And you would keep this unsealed envelope as justification for your authorship. Well, legal systems have since kind of really not taken that as a big weight. So US copyright is typically your best leverage to prove authorship. Well, if we use blockchain as this record, right? Because the problem with US copyright, it costs $80 and it takes 6 months. I've had a copyright go through and they're, here 8 months later and oh, actually, can you resubmit? Because there's an error here. So what does the user who's trying to protect their data do in the 8 months that they have not received their copyright? And they've actually taken the steps to protect themselves, but they don't have a mechanism of proof. Well, we use the cryptography of blockchain and having an identity of IPFS tied to like a stake address, and you have some kind of DID system. Now, with IPFS, you have a point of origin that you can point to these IPFS files, because currently it's very difficult to establish point of origin on IPFS. You can ask, hey, which node has this file? And a node can say, hey, I've had this file, and maybe you can log back when they received that file, but you do not know when that data was created. So tying the blockchain record with data retrieval, that's like one utility, but the main aspect is, extending the trustless nature of blockchain to its off-chain reference data, because that's 90% of dApp interaction. And if we cannot trust that the data you are fetching is valid, there's so many use cases that are broken there with NFTs. And our current ecosystem, Max kind of touched on this, we are a Web 2 ecosystem, but we're very much adopting Web 2 mentality. Anyone that was reading the budget ecosystem proposals probably saw the NFT CDN proposal. And I was against this proposal for one aspect, is this is further abstracting the data fetch from users. You are further making it harder for users to validate that, because one of the mechanisms of a CD is caching or modifying these data sets to make them more deliverable over the web. So while some applications want performance websites, right, you want a sub-second load time. If you have anything that's about data integrity, you will wait 10 seconds to ensure that those cryptographic proofs are valid. So one of the things Max brought up is, I think we really have to decide, how much security and how much convenience we want to input into our apps. And the best thing we can do is provide different options, because it's not going to be a general one fits all kind of thing. Some people just want to fetch images in sub-seconds. So yeah, NFT CDN is great for you, but payments, data validation is absolutely crucial. So we identified the problem that, yeah, we have a very poor way of validating off-chain data fetch. And this spec aims to resolve that.
Nice. Thinking, how you see, instead of using FPFS, use something like Aegon, when you can still work on the token and help the community a little more?
So the focus of this proposal is very much using IPFS to demonstrate that peer-to-peer communication, because it's so open. Having a user require an IAGON node, right? There's other steps that they would have to take to be able to leverage a peer-to-peer communication. That being said, when we have these cryptographic proofs, including a hash that's not exclusive to IPFS, right? So an ED2551 hash that you can include in the metadata, and that way, if you're going to IAGON, Arweave, or these other platforms, the data can still be validated cryptographically across these platforms. IPFS was chosen because it's kind of low-hanging fruit. It has a huge amount of adoption in this ecosystem already, and we already have proof of concept clients that we're working on to enable encryption client side, basically empowering the user. And then the next stage is, how do the dApps build their backends to ensure that on their end, that that trust is there. And then between dApps and then users, how does that same line of communication be maintained? But to answer your question, absolutely, we would like to make it general to allow for multiple data providing services.
Right. Great point. And then the same question to you: how, if there is something that we can do, just one thing, what will be that to help you, to help the project?
I think the recognition that off-chain data validation is something that is underlooked, and something that we need to consider. I think that's like the main thing, because if you implement this into an application, the user, if your application implements this to the user, they're not going to see a difference, right? I wanted an image, I got an image. So it's real hard to say, hey, you need this when you're looking very much at the surface. So I think communicating the idea, hey, we're talking about a trustless ecosystem, and we kind of don't have the mechanism with the data that we're fetching here. I think that awareness of that fact is key. Um, with our applications that we're implementing it, hopefully those provide the examples of implementation. But to me, I think the idea is greatly underlooked. So getting that idea communicated first, I think, is crucial.
Super. Nice. Gabriel, thank you. Let's go to this. I just saw your project in the chat. Can you talk a little bit about it, please?
Yeah. Thanks, mate. So my name is Thijs, and I've been around the space for 5 years or so, but only like just jumping into like the Cardano community. And I have a background in education and finance, and I've really like gotten into water activism over the years. And really what I found there was like most of the world, like what we're seeing is essentially this wealth grab. And I think that what I'm hearing like you guys talk about is essentially when we really get down to the core of it about giving people more control. And we're seeing people all over the place lose control. Like what is it, like 0.01% of the people in this planet owns all the assets, all the wealth. Um, and so what we're having is essentially like this huge water crisis going on at the moment, and there's chronic underinvestment in the water sector as a whole, and that comes from things like you could view it as like billionaires are grabbing up water lands with access. You're seeing Bill Gates all over the United States, grabbing up people's access. We're seeing water rights, like essentially deal about who has access to what water being done behind closed doors, institutions. Australia has turned water into a commodity, meaning that it's traded as oil. And really, what water is it's the most essential resource on the planet. Nothing functions without water. Not our bodies, cities, economies, nothing works without water. It's a resource that has always been around and will always be around for as long as we are alive. And it's not, in that sense, it's not like other resources. Like 200 years ago, what was the most important resource? Like whale oil. We don't talk about whale oil anymore. It's not important. And the minerals that we are fighting over today is like for our iPhones or whatever. And who knows if they're going to be important in 100 years. But water will always be here. And right now it's being controlled by very few people, by large monopolies, corporations. All the assets, meaning infrastructure, technologies, investments into startups, that whole financial economy around the water sector is being controlled by very few people. So essentially what Aquara is, it's just a fund like any other fund, but it's decentralized and it's owned by the community and everybody can access this and invest into it. And then it's essentially run by a DAO. So that's like the revolutionary aspect here. Now suddenly resource management and the funding of resources is not done by a single few people behind closed doors. It can be done transparently by everyone. And that's really the essence of what we're building. So yeah, and then I just like published our Fund 14 proposal. We're starting simple. I just want to get like a DAO pilot with simulated proposals just to get some engagement and see how we can get it to work potentially. And as some of you also mentioned, like feedback is key when we do this stuff. So obviously we're going to need a lot of that to refine such a model, because it is truly something that the world has never seen before, and it's going to require many years. We have a 12-year roadmap ahead of us, and I think it's going to take quite a lot more than that because we are waiting for regulation and those kind of things. But these kind of resource models are a way that will allow people to have control over their own assets in ways that they've never really had before. And yeah, it starts with our Fund 14 proposal. And yeah, thank you for letting me give this introduction. Like I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for coming over, man. This is the check-in. This is the check-in place for
Yeah,
analysts.
yeah, appreciate it.
Simon has his hands up. Go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, I just want to say I think this is super interesting. I've always, or for a long time, I've been saying like water is my dream investment because it's
Yeah.
just, I mean, not just because it's like fundamental in the ways that you described it, but also from a human standpoint. I mean, that's definitely something that's going to be much more important in the future and much more
Mm.
worth in the future. So if you can find a way to invest in that, that kind of gives you leverage as well. I'm curious, like, are you thinking about buying the water wells, the like where the water comes from, or what's the like long-term plan?
Tokenomics.
Strictly speaking, everything that gives access to water without being like the utility provider, I feel like that should always be the government's, like controlling the main water supply. But everything around like the ownership of making sure that everything is done proper and you invest in the proper infrastructure and so on. Those like different investment vehicles, meaning anything from land to startups, that should be something that this community fund can touch upon, not the utility providing itself.
Nice. You guys have any questions for Thesis? Thesis. I'm sorry, how you pronounce your name? Thesis?
Thijs.
Nice, thanks. I'll put that here.
Yeah, so Thijs, so what is the mechanism you're looking to set up? How are you expecting incentives to work in that?
Yeah. So essentially what we're creating is like a treasury. And in the beginning, because like again, water assets, the regulation around RWA, and so it's a bit complex. So in the beginning, like our token is going to function as a utility token in the sense that it's going to give you governance rights in terms of what happens with that treasury, and then create a roadmap that would ultimately lead to slowly the DAO gaining more and more control over the treasury. But yeah, in terms of like we talked about like staking and the like, but really it's like in the essence, like it's about is like creating some kind of a Trojan horse in a sense. Like you have to break traditional systems usually doesn't break from the outside, they break from the inside. And therefore like you can look at Climate DAO for incentives, like they had like the craziest staking numbers and they were dealing with like opaque systems like climate credits and whatnot. And also was what I think led the whole thing to break down. So you're gonna have a very grounded and feasible approach and that I think it starts with just leading it as a traditional fund in a way without having those staking mechanisms, which we've seen in like the early 20s collapsed multiple protocols if it's not done sustainable. So yeah, we're having a very grounded approach in terms of that.
Got it. Hey, question, guys. Are you guys looking at the proposal or any other thing? Am I sharing the proposal? Okay, good. Because I see different things here. Good. Anyway, yeah, any other questions, guys? Great proposal. Thais.
Mm,
Super.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming over. Sir, do you have anything to say or to proposal you have or anything?
But was that for me?
No, I was talking to Sir. I don't know.
Okay.
It's R, right? But anyway, well, if you guys have anything else to mention, I actually have a question for you guys, for Max and Gabriel. What is that attract you guys to GameChanger? Why you guys are using GameChanger for the project?
Oh man, for me, I had been told about GameChanger for years, and didn't implement it. And the main reason that I adopted it was the fact that you can have your users start up with Cardano without having any extensions installed. So, you have a user base that can access your app on iPad, on an Android tablet, anything that runs a browser. So the low point of friction. And then again, the very same aspect that we're doing is empowering the user. I don't know of another wallet that has given the user more power than GameChanger Wallet. A lot of the features Eternal had, GameChanger had like scripting and all of that built in. And, I just not looked at it for so long. So adapting like the mesh SDK connector that I used there, and then switching it to GameChanger was such a painless process. It was just super easy. Another reason is it also includes access to SIP30. So by using GameChanger, you're not cut off from your other wallet types. So to me, it was the most democratizing endpoint for users to get into Cardano.
I see. Great.
Yeah.
So
just to add on that a little bit, if I may, Juan. I mean, yeah, the client side controls there was a huge aspect of it, and the security, by which Adriano and the GameChanger team clearly looked at how to develop their product, but also just the common sense approach of the fact that because you're giving so many controls client side, you're really opening up the possibilities that users will be provided, assuming that they're going to use their own agents or their own tooling, right, on their client-side environments. That was really also a big part of this because, what will probably end up happening is that people want to make use of lots of different dApps and apps and different services. They'll want to do it through their own custom method of interfacing, right? And whatever that method is, whether that's a agent or some platform, it's applications like GameChanger has built that make that possible, right? That give you that level of abstraction. And I think that's also a really important and powerful aspect of how GameChanger is developing.
Super. Great. Martin, you have your turn.
Yeah, I think maybe it all started in Argentina, where I did a presentation with Adriano for how to build on GameChanger, where both Max and Gabriel were present as students. So it's nice to see a lot of GameChanger people here, I think. And I started myself wanting to build a payment system, but using GameChanger, that's the way I wanted a dApp to function. So you're not tied to, for example, only Chrome as a browser. That's such a limited way of interacting with the blockchain. Blockchain should be everywhere where you need it, and on any device. How you want to use it or how a dApp developer wants a person to use it should be up to the application developer. And another part of that is that GameChanger brings a lot more of the control from server side. So the dApp developer now in Cardano has basically all that stuff, all the control, all the dApp side is on the server. If this server stops functioning, it's very hard to, know how that protocol actually functions. In GameChanger, that's totally different because the transaction is built from a JSON file which the user downloads, basically. So he has the description of how a dApp functions. And together with Dandelion, an indexer, which is everybody can run, basically. Everybody should be able to run their own indexer to get information from the blockchain. That's basically a dApp, like building transaction, getting information from the blockchain. Now, those two parts are server side at the dApp developer, totally closed to anything what is going on. Only the user does only signing. So basically, every other wallet right now in Cardano is very simple, very basic. They get CBOR and they sign it. That's it. Their only job is that. So it's also very hard for the wallet to see what is going on. And therefore, very difficult to say, is this actually safe, what is going on? Because you have to basically decode the CBOR, where in GameChanger, the description is in JSON. So you know much more certainly what is going to happen. And we can, even I think Adriana is building towards that there's much more information about safety. So yeah,
Right.
I want to bring more. I want to make everything decentralized first, and everything user side, client side in the browser, and then we can have real decentralized payment systems. So yeah, that's where I got stuck in GameChanger, and yeah, I posted some of the proposals we're doing, and it's all about decentralization, and
That's true. That's true. You
once
guys
that's
have,
finished, there's coming a payment system. I promise.
right. You guys have a proposal. I failed not to show it. That should. Right. And what do you think will be? I mean, from the user point of view, not the developer, but the user point of view, what will be the advantage of having that combination of of tools, if you will, including GameChanger, all the tools that you guys have.
I think more safety, that your funds don't get locked in a dApp, because
Safety is one.
if the dApp stops working, you can still run it yourself. You
Okay.
can still access
What
the
else?
same- You would be able to access that same logic with GameChanger. If
Talking
the
about the user. Users don't want to know that this is made of. They know that it's a container that contains whatever.
if you are a sophisticated user, you don't want to lose your funds. So I think that's important. And also security is also important.
So in terms of adoption, in terms of adoption, how do you see this is going to work?
GameChanger works with JSON, which is JavaScript based. And we are improving the GraphQL indexer. So together with that, every Web2 dApp developer or Web2 developer uses JavaScript. With GameChanger, you don't need to have knowledge about Haskell or any of the complicated parts. We tried to. I think Adriano did the most part of that, but it fits with what I understand is the best way to use commonly used tools. So I think once we have that all scalable, yeah, we are set to really scale Cardano in a big way.
Super. Super. Let me see if I can show the proposal. Let me see if I open the notes. There it is. Actually, he put together a viewer for the proposals. I don't have it on this computer though, but that's a super duper tool to see not only the game changer proposals, but any other proposal. I have to bring it up. Let me see. So I'm thinking here, and I have a surprise for you guys. I hope you guys stay until the end to tell you the surprise that I have. There you go. Is this the proposal, right?
Yeah. So yeah, these proposals are mainly based still on improving the indexers, which is we have tried a lot of indexers on Cardano, and well, they all have their downsides still. So there's a lot that can be done to make the app development on Cardano super fun and super easy. I think we're getting there. So yeah, GameChanger file system is for storing files on Cardano.
Walk me through that one. Walk me through that one. I think that one is interesting.
So if you have like a contract, maybe you could put that on Cardano, for example. But we have also
You mean that you will bring to bring on chain the how you call that, not the actual proposal, but you will free the CIF, not a CIF phrase. What's the word? I forgot the word. What is the process? You tell me what's the process of putting something through GCFS on chain? If anybody, any of you guys know.
Well, there's a caching server where you could ask for files from Cardano. So files that are stored with GCFS, and this can be HTML files. So we have made an example or a prototype where you run like the full dApp, so the HTML from Cardano, with JSON that runs the transaction on the GameChanger, which runs in your browser. So there's none of it is running anywhere except Cardano and your browser. So I mean, that's where we want to go, right? Everything is decentralized. We're all sharing data, and there's no single point of failure or single point of control where somebody else can say, "Oh, I'm shutting down this server," then nothing works anymore.
Right. The second proposal is instant the app built for any device fast. Can you comment?
Yeah. We have now a GameChanger library. It's like we now have experience from Gabriel and using GameChanger, so we want to use all that knowledge into making a library which makes all that stuff easily available. So you can really build, a dApp you want quickly without, reinventing wheels.
Nice. And the third one is down the line. That one is a library that is very useful. Can you expand on that one a little bit?
Yeah, Dandelion is like all the server side technology you need to run a Cardano dApp. So transaction submission, indexing. There's several technologies that are common, like Blockfrost is open source, but can you run it? Also, Cardano GraphQL, for example. We have we like to use Cardano GraphQL because it's very powerful, but there are performance downsides and also it has some downsides in that it's hard to maintain at the moment, and it's built on outdated technology. So we tried Blockfrost, but it has like limitations. It requires, for the most basic things, it requires you to do a lot of API calls, and there's new indexers like Yasi, which don't use DB-Sync. Well, it's pretty complicated, all that technology that is available, but we have now learned how all that stuff works, and we think we can do improvements there. So
Nice.
we want to make that stuff which is open source, but you still have to put it all together. We just want to put a start button on it, and then you just press start and you run your own APIs.
Super. Great. So the resources are there on the proposal. Nice, very nice. Now the surprise, Ratio. How are you, man? I mean, I know. How are the dogs? First, let me ask you.
I had to put India down in 2023 because she had the cancer spread to her lungs, but still have her sister. She ain't gonna show up because my background, but and her sister's sitting next to me, so I still have her.
I see her a little bit. Nice to see you, man. It's been a while. It's been years. this is awesome to have developed friendship like this. I remember we were doing something with governance. Remember, we were doing with Kata with Giba Labs. We were doing governance.
Yeah. There were a lot of groups, marketing, governance,
Right. And I remember
tokenomics.
economics, and that
That
was
was
that's so
20,
fun.
that was, when was that? That was 2023, I think.
But I think, yeah, well, 2023. Yeah, time flies, huh?
It does.
We
It
didn't know
does.
each other by looking at us, but look,
Good seeing you again, man.
see
Been
you
a
too.
while.
Thank you for coming over. It's been a while, and I see you're very active on Game Changer. I noticed that you've been playing around a lot. Good.
Yeah, until they kicked me out of the server. So
Why? Why is that?
I'm kidding.
Burn it? You burn it out? Anyway, guys, what a nice surprise. In reality, this is what this site is all about. We come over and share stuff. So whenever you are in Catalyst, we are here. And it will be nice. I'm recording this. I'm going to show this to. It's going to be in my YouTube, but also I'll show it to Adriano. He'll enjoy that. Anyway, guys, I think it's time for us to departure. Then Daniel will be like waiting. What about you guys taking too long?
Yeah.
We used to take 2 or 3 hours talking stupid, I mean things, and yeah, and the guys were there late at night. So yeah, Max, thank you for stopping by, and Gabriel and Martin, and of course, Radio too.
Good
So
to see you.
it's good to see you too. Remember, this is the way. We are always here. We speak Spanish, English, even Creole. Now I have a project with. Let's talk a little bit about that. We are bringing telemedicine to Haiti through a local friend that he's from Haiti. He's a medical doctor, retired, and I see him many places. And one day we were talking, and we decided to start doing something like putting friends together. So I just kind of created a WhatsApp chat and brought people together, right? So I put together Jorge Razanovsky from Argentina with who's a doctor as well, medical doctor, and Aldi Castor, and they came up with the idea of doing telemedicine for Haiti, and it's been super duper project. We are working with FIU to produce scientific papers out of that for 3 areas: sociology, technology, which is blockchain, and then medical. Uh, the reason for that, can you believe that in Haiti, people, instead of going to the doctor, they use guru? So they were bringing the doctors there, they need to learn guru first and then start practicing medicine. So the sociological impact is going to be huge. And yeah, we're working on that. So yeah, going back to what we're saying, we speak every language. So if you come, prepare for being like, or be quiet because someone else is talking a language that you don't understand or we don't understand. But the idea is that people come over here and get answer to questions and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the purpose. See you guys. So thank you so much for stopping by. We'll keep in touch.
For sure.
And we just stop recording this. I always have
Thanks so
Yeah,
much, everybody.
issue with that.